Hi, Ben here from Supercoach Insider, bringing you my team debrief. It was Sydney against Port Adelaide tonight, and what an absolute showdown. Now, I say showdown because Port just came off and Adelaide lost in their showdown, and this one was shaping up to be very interesting. It was a little bit of toing and froing, so Sydney dominated very early. Port came back in and had a slight lead. Sydney pushed away again, and it looked all but dusted, and Port had to kick a few goals late in order to get it interesting, so you had... Horn Francis, I think, kicked a goal. Rosie kicked a goal, which really spiked up his score. And then Finlayson. So it was a little bit of a tit for tat. Finlayson kicked a goal that was then leading the game. And the funny part about this game, twofold. So number one, Florent was already having a good game. They get the mark inside forward 50. The siren goes as he's coming in to kick it. He looks like it's online, like it looks like a nice kick. It's going straight through the goals. He then starts celebrating, jumps on the ground, and has Stevenson like coming on top of him, like, yeah, that sounded really bad. And the hand gesture is even worse, coming over to him. And they were celebrating, and Port Adelaide literally came and rejected it just before the line. And the worst part was, and this is pretty much joy and pain all in literally one segment. So watch the replay if you haven't already. But the ball's in the air, and even all the Sydney crowd's getting up and cheering. Because I know that feeling. You're looking, and you're not thinking, is it going the distance from 45? You're looking at, is it going straight through? So they all start cheering. And then the hands on the head straight after. Zane, shout out, mate, because I feel for you, a big Sydney fan. But, yeah, I just feel for that crowd in that element. So, but look, let's get straight up and into this game as far as the Supercoach relevancy for it. So straight away now, for me, I don't know how many people have him, but Chad Warner definitely showed another glimpse of him taking the next level. 30 touches, 5 tackles, 2 goals, 1. So really hitting that scoreboard when he's pushing forward of centre. Only 50% disposal efficiency. So again, 137 Supercoach could have, I guess those goals and the impact that he had in the right time. So when you kick 2 goals and there's only, 9 goals in a game for your team, then that's where a lot of the points come in. But highly contested, so 19 contested possessions, 9 clearances, 6 clangers. But yeah, definitely not too upset with what he delivered in this game. Lloyd's been keeping on. So I think it was a few weeks back where he was super slow at halftime, came back and scraped through 100. Could have been round 1 or 2. He's been really good. Better than Doherty. So look, if you did go there, I would not like to criticize you, but look, Lloyd is definitely seagulling his way to, late here at a midnight. So this was from the Australian Whiskey, what is it? The Australian Whiskey Group is pretty much each month I go through and get that. So if you are interested, let me know. I could probably give you my promo code or whatever. It doesn't give you much, but yeah, good gear. So the other thing to note is Goulden. Now, Goulden was on bugger all. Coming in towards halftime, he was like on, like 24, got to 30, and it's like, okay, got to like 38, and it's like, all right, he's, he was super quiet. But second half, he just dominated, and he got in everything. So he went from, I think, even at 3/4 time on like 10 or 11 touches, but still getting, 60 sort of Supercoach, just was in everything. And the interesting thing to note with him, though, is that he had 7 tackles, so that kind of helps buff it up. But that when the push came to shove and the big game players, he just worked his way into the game. And they looked for him. He was super clean, super efficient. Efficient enough. Like, I know his disposal efficiency, he doesn't say it was great for this game, but he would then kick it to over his player's head into open side so he could run onto it. So I know that doesn't really give you huge stats because you're kind of putting it into space, but I thought he is definitely someone with a huge Supercoach capability. So if you'd have to be happy with 100 and, 102. So you'd have to be super happy with that. Had some score assists at the right moment, got some good clearances and some handballs and contested possessions at the right moment. The interesting thing, though, and that's something I do want to watch. So last week we saw with Callum Mills going and tagging, who'd they play? So it was not a Cripps, was it? It was a bigger bodied player. So Clary, where he tagged a bigger bodied player. So Goulden went down to a 30% CBA in that game. Now this one was interesting because he pushed into defense to get some clearances and a few things and did have some CBAs. But then as it was in general play, it was almost like he was on the wing. So, and then they were trying to, when they would switch or center the ball and, try and bring it through the corridor, he was then open to try and then deliver it into the 50 and try and do it that way. So it is interesting. I'm not quite sure. I need to look at some of these stats for his CBAs, etc., and his markups as to where he's positioning. But it does give me a little concern. Now, the good thing is, again, he scraped through 100 and it looked like it was going to be a bad game. But the lapses in halves that he's had is a little concerning, because if he doesn't bring it together like he has, last week he got like 85, but he was super low for a lot of that game as well. Those are the little things that are concerning to watch, whether he will end up being a 100 average player and doing really well, or whether he'll kind of scrape somewhere between the 90 to 100 will be yet to see. So that's definitely the interesting note there. Callum Mills as well, 87 Supercoach, only 21 touches, did have 90% time on ground again. So he's probably one that's definitely falling when you have Warner and you have a few other people in there. Now, this one might have been impacted by row bottom. So last week it was, say, Goulden being impacted by Mills, who was not tagging, but running with Clary as a bigger body defensive mid. Whereas this game, Connor Rosie is the more, I guess, a bit leaner, a bit more dynamic, sort of hit the scoreboard sort of midfielder. And they actually had Rowbottom go to him and pretty much wear him like a blanket. Now, it didn't really, I guess, suit early on. Like, Rosie still had a few touches and still was able to do well enough that he was looking like a good serviceable score, like in the 40s to 50s around halftime, but pretty much stalled out. Now, the second half, and what I noticed, he was very lucky to get a free kick and kick a goal, because that pretty much took him from like 50 up to 90, like stupidly just, put them up within reach or in the lead. And then it scaled back, and then obviously, scaled back, and he ended up with like an 85. So you can't be 84 overall in the end. So you can't be too upset with that, considering he was between 50 to 60 for a lot of the second half. So I'd take that as a mini win. But the thing I even noticed is that, with even right to the end in the last quarter, Rowbottom's on him at a stoppage and pretty much just getting, stoppage side of him and just kind of pushing him out. And Rosie was just kind of like, oh, okay, just like getting pushed out of the way, and had no issues with it. Literally, just was like, oh, okay. And then once the ball would hit the ground, it was like, okay, Rowbottom's like, well, the ball's now hit the ground, so it's now out of stoppage, and he didn't care as much. So then Rosie would then try and, meander on after this ball, and I think that's why he wasn't successful. So I don't know if it just wasn't his game or whether he just kind of like gave up on it, but he was easily getting just pushed further away from the stoppage. A bit of muscle up from Rowbottom, just kind of keeping him as far away as possible. And Rosie wasn't great in that element. So I think they need, an Ollie Wines or someone to start really standing up to take a little bit more of the brunt, who has been coming off injury. I know, just a little disappointing as for me. Ollie Wines, I mean, what do you have? 19 touches, 13 handballs out of that. So 50% disposal efficiency, just not a great day for Ollie Wines. 34 Supercoach. So, you might be able to pick him up cheap, ladies and gentlemen. Could be definitely an option there going forward. The other one to note as well is, so Horn Francis, 95 Supercoach. Definitely played into his hands the fact that, he did kick, was it 1 goal, 1? But it's probably the best 18 touches 95 Supercoach game I've ever seen. Like, I think he had 8 touches at halftime for 50-odd Supercoach. So, impacted well in parts. I think he had a good enough game. Was it a 95 game, though? I'm not too sure on that. I mean, 69 DT and 95 Supercoach. 3 tackles, 11 contested possessions. So that's where the scaling kind of comes into it. 6 clearances. So I guess that's sort of where it comes into it as well. Only 68% time on ground. So, I don't know quite what to make of him. That high impact, low time on ground kind of player. He's going to have those sort of games, and he'll probably tear a game open soon enough against a weak opponent at home and get another 130. And at that point, I'd probably look to move him on because of that variance. So if you held him, let me know. Definitely someone I wouldn't mind holding against weaker opponents coming up. And if you traded him, I can't blame you for a single second on getting rid of him out of your side. Houston, I won't go on to Houston outside of the fact that was deliberately rushed behind. I had a few little debates, I guess, online as far as the ruling and the rest of it, and I know it is subjective, but I just hate to get to a point where people walk through without much pressure behind just because they think they can. Now, I know there are some ones where they're under immediate pressure or they're under physical pressure and they can get rid of it, but yeah, Houston had it from pretty much got it, shook a tackle, and then pretty much had 8 meters to then decide to go and walk through the behind post when his opponent gave up. So I have zero empathy for Houston as far as that free kick went against him. Okay, so the other thing as well, the Amati party, ladies and gentlemen, is over. The Amati party, now 6,500 people have him in their side. Yeah, no, that's not going to work. I was very adamant telling people not to bring him in their side. Spiked a good score once, spiked not a great score after that. I said Hickey's not too far away. And yeah, the Amati party pretty much ended up with a 21 Supercoach. He was on 19 at one point. I was chatting away to someone on Twitter, and SC Insider 100, if you want to look. He gave away a free kick. He tackled Horn Francis high, and he didn't lose any points. And I'm watching it, and it just stayed on 19 for 10 minutes. So he didn't even go backwards, which means you should be pretty lucky the fact that he didn't actually drop in Supercoach as far as that one. So, yeah, Amati. So, look, it is what it is. 21 Supercoach, you literally can't afford to stay on anymore. That 21's in his cycle for 3 weeks, and he will drop cash so quickly. It'll pretty much be like, I was going to say Horn Francis on a night out, but no, he doesn't drop cash at all. Yeah, so look, when we get into the rest of it, Heaney, again, disappointing as far as like Supercoach goes, not getting the CBAs, so definitely not really relevant as much as this year kind of goes. And outside of that, I think that pretty much wraps up all the major parties. I feel for Sydney. They deserve to win this game. They're at home. They should have won this game. But it was that kind of scrap fest where, even though they were dominant and they, should have won by more or should have won, they left Port in it. And Port are under the pump with 1 wins, 2 losses at that point, and they were just scrapping. So, you scrap, you try and get a goal together. I thought Dixon was very influential as well, just bringing it to ground. Dersma, probably the best game I'd seen of him yet, as far as, linking back. Got a couple of intercept marks early, pushing hard into defense, and that's probably the cleanest I think I've seen him sort of look so far this season, getting some of that contested ball as well. So I thought that was his best game probably in the last couple of years for Dersma. And Butters as well, chipped away, 89 Supercoach. Not really relevant, not getting the CBAs that we thought he might. So he's not really relevant, and he's definitely not averaging a high amount so far this year. If things change, Butters could definitely be on my radar, but at this point, he had enough touches. I mean, he had 27 touches, 50% disposal efficiency, killed his Supercoach potential in this game. And, enough contested ball, enough of the ball, etc. But he just didn't use it well enough to really capitalize as far as Supercoach goes. And the other one I'm actually noticing as well and just keeping an eye on is Trevor Spoke. Came back, obviously, from injury, 19 touches, but just had very little effect for me. Linked up a few bits and bobs, but what was he? He had 63% disposal efficiency, which is unlike Boak. Only 2 contested possessions, which again is unlike Boak. He only had 260 meters gained, which is, again, unlike Boak. So I just felt like he lacked that impact, and that shows with his 55 Supercoach. So if he gets 4 DPP and then maybe gets more of a run in that midfield to get sort of that 90 or 100 mark, he could be worthwhile looking at. But outside of that, I think it's pretty much, he's just not impressing. And final thoughts is, before I wrap up as well, is just obviously with Paddy McCartin particularly, so innocuous that it looked like, pretty much like he was just stretching out for the ball, and then he kind of like hit his head slightly. It didn't look like a really large or heavy hit, just one of those innocuous ones. But he looked groggy, like super, super groggy for not much impact, which is it's very concerning, because I know he'd cop a couple little knocks and everyone was getting really concerned. This one is like health scary, because it didn't look like it was much that just it knocked him out. And he was groggy as all hell. Like, he was not in a good way. And I honestly think that's probably his last game. And I feel super, super, super sorry and saddened, because, it was a huge success story. And then to have something just so innocuous cause so much damage visibly, it just makes you sick. Like, it's triggering. And then to follow that also, then you have like Tom McCartin get knocked out. And I'm just like, mate, can the McCartin brothers like have at least some kind of piece tonight. Like, the story would be obviously Paddy then gets, knocked out, but then Tom gets knocked out in the same game, which is just, not fitting for me. So, look, that's it from the game. Let me know what you thought if you watched it live as well, or go back and watch some of the highlights, because it's so cringe the way Florent went, and then the heartbreak after, your heart just breaks. And then watch the crowd as well. The crowd go up, and the people behind the goals as well, they start putting their hands on their head, and then Port just starts celebrating away from home. Yeah, you just can't write that script. So, look, that's it from me. That's it from us for this one. Stay tuned. Tomorrow, some more games. Is Clary going 200? I sure hope so, because I think I need it this week as my captain. So, yeah, that's it. Let me know. Talk to you soon. And, yeah, go D's, boy.